I don't know about you, but I have a bit of 2020 burnout and it's only July. What's next? An alien invasion? A zombie apocalypse? A chocolate shortage? I don't have a crystal ball. So it's probably best if I just stick to what I know, and that is the Anthem Arizona real estate market. If this is your first time here, welcome. If you've been here before, thank you so much for coming back and for spending your time with me. My name is Lindsay and I'm a proud Anthem resident and your local realtor with the Wise Move AZ team at Realty One Group. On this channel, we have a lot of fun talking about all things Anthem and real estate every single Thursday, and we absolutely love having you along for the ride. Our last market update video was released on January 16th, 2020. And oh my goodness, if I could go back and talk to that girl, I would have a lot to say. So much has happened since then, and truthfully, we're still trying to figure out the long-term impact of COVID-19 on our Anthem real estate market, if any. So bear with me, because trying to make predictions about what's going to happen in our real estate market under these uncertain conditions is kind of like trying to count all the grains of sand at the beach on a windy day. We put a lot of thought into what statistics would be most valuable for you and how we can best assess the impact on our market to date. Carolyn and I are nerds when it comes to statistics. There are so many different directions we could have taken this video. That being said, we also know that you probably don't want to sit there while we just rattle off numbers all day. We decided to look at a few key indicators throughout 2018 and 2019 to give a baseline of sorts. We'll then compare that to the first half of 2020 and then make our best educated guesses on what buyers and sellers can realistically expect for the latter half of 2020. As you may or may not know, Anthem is a one-of-a-kind master planned community just north of Phoenix. The community is made up of 7 distinct areas, each with their own unique charm and features. These areas include Anthem Country Club, Anthem Parkside East, Anthem Parkside West, including Circle Mountain Ranch, Arroyo Grande, Paseo, the Landings, and the Village. I think at this point we've done video tours on almost all of the different areas, so if that interests you, I will link to our Anthem Neighborhood Tour playlist in the cards for this video. We decided that this video would be way too long if we looked at the stats for each of these different areas, even if it would make our nerdy hearts sing. So in the interest of time, the stats that we're sharing in this video are for Anthem as a whole. If you would like stats for a particular area within Anthem, let us know by way of comment below or by sending us an email to team@wisemoveaz.com and we'll happily get that information over to you. In this video, we'll be using the following key market indicators: the number of homes sold, the average sales price per square foot, the average days on market, and how close homes sold to their listing price. So let's take a look at the number of homes sold on a monthly basis. This graph shows the number of homes sold each month: 2018 in peach, 2019 in gray, and 2020 in pink. In 2018 and 2019, the numbers showed a similar trend or cycle. We start the year relatively slow, with sales growing through to the end of the summer and then tapering off through the end of the year. You can see that sales were uncharacteristically low in April and May of this year. I feel that this can be directly attributed to COVID-19, the uncertainty it caused, and the fact that Arizona had an active stay-at-home order in place from March 31st to May 15th. Although real estate was considered essential and business was permitted to continue, it certainly didn't mean business as usual. For us to have a normal number of closings in May, we would have needed a normal number of people shopping for homes in April, and that simply wasn't the case. That being said, you can see that the number of homes sold bounced right back to normal levels in June. This was very exciting for us to see. Just based on the amount of activity we've personally seen in the market and other analyses we've read, we suspect we'll see our normal high numbers of sales in July and August, with sales tapering down to the end of the year. Personally, I think if we could see a bit more inventory hitting the market, we could even exceed 2019 sales in the latter part of 2020. The reason being is that I think there's a bit of pent-up demand from the homes that weren't purchased in April and May. I really don't feel like those buyers just disappeared. They may have been concerned about job loss, they may have been uncomfortable with traveling across state lines, or they may have just been turned off by the thought of buying a house in the middle of a global pandemic. Whatever their reason, I think that those buyers will be stepping back into the market as and when they feel comfortable doing so, and as long as Anthem has the supply, they'll be ready to buy. Next, let's take a look at average sales price in Anthem month over month. When looking at this graph, I want you to focus on the dark purple line in the middle. This is the average sales price. The pink line on top is the high, while the gray line on the bottom is the low. As you can see, the average sales price in Anthem has by and large been increasing steadily since the start of 2018. Upon pulling these numbers, I was very interested to see the spike in the average price in March of 2020. However, on further investigation, this can largely be attributed to one sale in Anthem Country Club that exceeded $1 million. It is not indicative of a dramatic appreciation in prices in Anthem as a whole. We started 2020 with an average sales price of roughly $363,000, and at the end of June, we had an average of roughly $388,000. That suggests an appreciation of 6.8% in property values in the first half of 2020. Interestingly, this is even higher than the roughly 5% appreciation we saw in Anthem throughout 2019. So, did all that uncertainty, global pandemic, stay-at-home stuff have an impact on our prices? At the moment, I would have to say that it appears not. As homeowners in Anthem, we're excited at the thought of our homes appreciating year over year. However, as realtors, we know that prices can only increase so much before it starts to raise other concerns in the market. Our hope is that we'll see a more modest and sustainable rate of growth in prices in the latter half of 2020. That being said, I think we'll still be in a strong seller's market for the foreseeable future. If you'd like to learn more about the differences between buyers and sellers markets and what it means for you, click to watch this video in the cards. Average sales price only says so much, and it really can't account for the difference between a mansion and a starter home. As realtors, we often like to look at the average price per square foot when looking at the state of the market. This can create a more level comparison between properties, but it is by no means a perfect comparison. On this graph, much like the last, I want you to focus on the gray line in the middle. This line shows the average sales price per square foot in Anthem month over month, while the pink line up top shows the high and the peach line on the bottom shows the low. As you can see, prices grew at a stable and slower rate through 2018. They ramped up slightly in 2019 and then grew even more rapidly through the first part of 2020, with the exception of May 2020, which saw a slight dip. 2019 ended with an average price per square foot of $163.53, and in June 2020, we saw an average price per square foot of $176.75. That's a difference of more than $13 per square foot. Much like average sales price, we expect sale price per square foot to continue a steady increase through to the end of 2020. Again, our hope is that this increase will occur at a slower and more sustainable rate. Another interesting statistic is average cumulative days on market. This gives an indication of how long a home sat on the market before closing. It's important to note that this statistic is also imperfect. If a home is marked as pending when it goes under contract, it stops accumulating days on market. However, if a home is marked UCB, under contract accepting backups, or CCBS, contract contingent on buyer's sale, it continues to accrue days on market until the day of closing. That being said, this figure can still give us a good idea of how long homes are sitting on the market here in beautiful Anthem, Arizona. As you can see on this graph, the days on market has fluctuated quite a bit since 2018. I would be hard-pressed to say that it follows any sort of annual pattern, and would be more inclined to say it's more closely related to the amount of inventory, or in our case, the lack of inventory. That being said, I think we can all agree that this graph shows a fairly consistent decrease in the average number of days on market since September 2019. What does this mean? It means that on average, homes are selling faster when they hit the market today than at the start of the year. This might seem counterintuitive. Prices were higher and the homes were selling faster? Doesn't that go against basic economic principles? The short answer is no. The piece that's missing in this picture is that the inventory in Anthem continues to be uncharacteristically low. The low supply may have driven prices up and forced people to make quicker decisions when they find the right house. Thus, the continued decline in the average days on market. We also couldn't help but pointing out the leveling off of the average number of days on market in the last 3 months, i.e. April, May, and June. This is because the average number of days on market is probably getting about as low as it can. While cash buyers may be able to close on very short timelines, buyers that are getting a loan typically need at least 30 days. Additionally, since COVID hit, many lenders have been requiring 45 days for closings. Well, in May, the average was 45 days. This, in theory, means that homes were going under contract almost the very day they hit the market. Anyways, I'm nerding out a bit over these numbers, but the point I'm trying to make is that I don't think that we'll see the average number of days on market go much lower unless there's an influx of cash buyers and sellers who can accommodate uncharacteristically quick closings. I suspect that we'll either see this number level off for the remainder of 2020, or we may even see a slight increase, particularly if we can get a bit more inventory in the latter half of the year. Lastly, people are always curious about how close homes sell to their list price. In 2018, homes sold for an average of 98% of their list price. In 2019, homes sold for an average of 99% of their list price. So far in 2020, homes have again been selling for an average of 99% of their list price. Some buyers may find this disheartening as they feel like there's little room to negotiate, and in some cases, that may be true. But it doesn't account for the fact that some homes are priced too high when they first hit the market, and they don't sell until they've been reduced to within 1% of the market value. You're probably sick of hearing us say this, but it just speaks to working with an agent who has local expertise and understands the value of the homes in the area. This is important for both buyers and sellers. Long story short, from where I sit right now, it would appear that COVID-19 has only been a blip on the radar when it comes to our Anthem real estate market. I've said it before on our channel and I'll say it again. We seem to be somewhat protected here in Anthem because of our limited supply and continually strong demand. To date, the greatest impact seems to have been in April and May, and only when it came to the number of homes sold. Now, is it possible that there are longer lasting ramifications to our Anthem market? Yes, of course, but these may only be visible when we look backwards a year from now. I suspect that the impact will be smaller than we originally feared. Hindsight is always 2020. We eat, sleep, and breathe the Anthem real estate market, so you can count on us to keep a close eye on this. Ultimately, it continues to be a good time to be a seller in Anthem in 2020, and we suspect the same will be true for at least the remainder of the year. Buyers, this does not mean that it's a bad time for you to buy. It just means that you need to be diligent and informed. You need to make sure that you're ready to act quickly when the right home hits the market, and you also need to make sure that you're working with a realtor with local expertise who can make sure that you're not overpaying for the home. So there you have it. What do you think? Are you thinking about buying a home in Anthem before 2020 is through? Or if you already live here, are you thinking about capitalizing on the strong sellers market? Overall, it's still a very exciting time to be living and working in the community that we love so much. If you have questions about how these numbers impact you specifically, please let me know. You can always send us an email at team@wisemoveaz.com. If all of this has you thinking, yeah, I could consider a move to Anthem, then you'll definitely want to download our free guide to HOA fees throughout Anthem. I will drop a link to that in the description box below. If you enjoyed this video, please let me know by hitting that like button, subscribing to our channel, and leaving me a comment. Lastly, if you'd like to learn a little bit more about the different areas within Anthem, click to watch this video up top. Or if you need to sell your current home before you can buy in beautiful Anthem, Arizona, click to watch this video on the bottom where I share a step-by-step checklist of getting your home ready to list in 30 days or less. Enjoy those, and I'll see you next Thursday.